The poet Longfellow wrote, "If we could read the secret history of our enemies, we should find in each person's life sorrow and suffering enough to disdain all hostility." A long, long time ago, I heard this simple mandate: love your enemies. I heard it first from Jesus by way of the Baptist Church. I heard it in sermons and Sunday school classes. I read it in the Bible where Jesus is teaching a lesson, that famous Sermon on the Mount. He says, "You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. He says that because it's in the Old Testament, the law of Moses. Eye for eye, tooth for tooth, arm for arm. On and on it goes. But I say to you," Jesus said, "do not resist him who is evil. But whoever slaps you on your right cheek, turn to him the other also. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." Love your enemies. Preposterous. Why in the world would anyone want to follow such advice? It makes no sense, really. Jesus did. Look what it got him. Gandhi too, and MLK. Love your enemies. God doesn't even do that. In the Old Testament, in the book of Proverbs, wisdom is heard to say, "I love those who love me." I found a clue to understanding something about love your enemy in an old issue of a UU World magazine. It said, activism is an act of faith. The author defined activism as the actions of those who lack authority through the traditional power structure, yet still believe they can make a difference and shape society around them. When I read that, it occurred to me that loving my enemies is also an act of faith. Loving my enemy only makes sense if I am dedicated to the cause of justice, equity, and compassion. Straight from our 7 principles. In a recent blog I found called The Laundry, Adriana Limbach said, "I've always considered loving kindness meditation to be a wolf in sheep's clothing, in the best possible sense of the word." I like that she has that. It presents, this loving kindness meditation presents as a soft, cuddly, sentimental practice. And also, when we really go for it, when we give ourselves over to it, loving kindness is a practice with teeth. It's fairly radical in that it asks of us to question our assumptions about what we find difficult in others and unsightly in ourselves. And then it asks us to begin chipping away at our bias and our judgments, to stretch towards a more magnanimous, inclusive, generous perspective. This is always a useful practice, but especially right now, in a political and societal season when so many of us are resisting the hopelessness caused by watching the erosion of care for humanity. As Sharon Salzberg writes in her book, Real Happiness, The Power of Meditation, she said, loving kindness is a form of love that can be learned. It is the ability to take some risks with our awareness, to look at ourselves and others with kindness instead of criticism, to include in our concern those to whom we normally pay no attention, to care for ourselves unconditionally. It is the ability to gather our attention and really listen to others, even those we've written off as not worth our time. It is the ability to see the humanity in people we don't know and the pain in people we find difficult. The call to love our enemies is not exclusive to Christianity. In fact, I remind you, Jesus wasn't Christian. Jesus was a Jewish rabbi. For the longest time, our UUA developed a set of teaching curricula called Tapestries of Faith. It covered lessons for all age groups in religious education. One of them was designed for high school youth. It was called Faith Heroes. Here are 4 of them and what they have to teach about loving our enemies. Faith Heroes. Thich Nhat Hanh. In Southeast Asia, the Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh used the principles of compassion and nonviolence to campaign against the war in Vietnam, his home. Hanh believed that people of faith, especially youth, could not remain silent in the face of social injustice. They must work together to heal the world. He founded the School for Youth, the School of Youth for Social Services in Saigon, a grassroots relief organization for people of all faiths that rebuilt bombed villages, set up schools and medical centers, resettled homeless families, and organized agricultural cooperatives. Hanh coined the phrase engaged Buddhism, which refers to Buddhists who want to act on the insights of their meditation practices to address situations of social, political, and economic suffering and injustice. Hanh asked faith communities to support a worldwide revolution of values based on compassion and nonviolence. According to the Buddhist principle of compassion, human beings should love one another because they are not the source of social injustice. Our enemies are not the source of social injustice. Ideas are the source of social injustice. Thich Nhat Hanh said, I believe with all my heart that your enemies are not people. They are intolerance, fanaticism, dictatorship, cupidity, hatred, and discrimination that lie within the hearts of humankind. Hanh recalled a prayer that was offered by one of his students. Lord Buddha, help us to be alert, to realize that we are not victims of each other. We are victims of our own ignorance and the ignorance of others. Help us avoid engaging ourselves more in mutual slaughter because of the will of others to power and to predominate. Mahatma Gandhi. Though Gandhi derived most of his principles from Hinduism, he believed all religions to be equal. He believed that at the core of every religion was truth and love. He read extensively about other religious traditions. Gandhi drew strength to stand up to his ideals from his strong religious commitment. He said, when doubts haunt me, when disappointments stare me in the face, and when I see not one ray of light on the horizon, I turn to the Bhagavad Gita and find a verse to comfort me. And I immediately begin to smile in the midst of overwhelming sorrow. My life has been full of tragedies, and if they have not left any visible and indelible effect on me, I owe it to the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. I am a Hindu, he said, because it is Hinduism which makes the world worth living. I am a Hindu, hence I love not only human beings, but all living things. Dorothy Day. Familiar with Dorothy Day? Dorothy Day was a journalist turned social activist and a devout member of the Roman Catholic Church. She became known for her social justice campaigns in defense of the poor, forsaken, hungry, and homeless. She was arrested for the first time at 20 years old, protesting at the White House for women's right to vote. She founded the Catholic Worker Movement in 1933, espousing nonviolent action and hospitality for the impoverished and the downtrodden. She opened a house of hospitality in the slums of New York City. The movement quickly spread to other cities, and today well over 100 such communities exist. And I think of Stella, who's going out to Texas to visit a home that we can model some of our work with TOSS and the Putnam County Caring Coalition. A place probably like one of these house of hospitalities. Dorothy Day became involved in Catholicism as a young adult and said that she saw worship, adoration, thanksgiving, and supplication as the noblest acts which we are capable of in this life. Worship, adoration, thanksgiving, and supplication. She understood the Catholic Church to be the church of the immigrants, the church of the poor, and she was fascinated by the Catholic spiritual discipline. Day struggled to find a way to bring together her religious faith and her radical social values. She prayed that a way would open up for her to use her talents to help the poor. In her autobiography, The Long Loneliness, Dorothy Day wrote, "We have all known the long loneliness, and we have learned that the only solution is love, and that love comes with community." What we would like to do is change the world. And by fighting for better conditions, by crying out for the rights of the workers, of the poor, of the destitute, we can, to a certain extent, change the world. We can work for the oasis, that little cell of joy and peace in a harried world. We can throw our pebble in the pond and be confident that its ever-widening circle will reach around the world. We repeat, there is nothing that we can do but love. And dear God, please enlarge our hearts to love each other, to love our neighbor, to love our enemy as well as our friend. And finally, Badshah Khan, if I'm saying it correctly. Abdul Ghaffar Khan, later known as Badshah Khan, was an Afghan political and spiritual leader known for his non-violent opposition to British rule on the Indian subcontinent. So he was following in the footsteps of Gandhi. He was a lifelong pacifist and a devout Muslim. Where Gandhi was a Hindu, he was Muslim. The two factions that made up India. Education as a means of social advancement was a central idea throughout his life. He said, I am going to give you such a weapon that the police and the army will not be able to stand against it. It is the weapon of the prophet. That weapon is patience and righteousness. No power on earth can stand against it. Khan wrote, my religion is truth, love, and service to God and humanity. Every religion that has come into the world has brought the message of love and brotherhood. Those who are indifferent to the welfare of their fellow men, whose hearts are empty of love, they do not know the meaning of religion. He said, today's world is traveling in some strange direction. You see that the world is going toward destruction and violence. Now, bear in mind, he wrote this long ago. And the specialty of violence is to create hatred among people of the world until nonviolence is practiced. Because nonviolence is love, and it stirs courage in people. And so we have Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, Catholic, and Protestants all teaching, love your enemies. We have faith heroes demonstrating with their lives that religion is not a set of doctrines or beliefs or rituals like meditation, but a love response to life. The rationale that Jesus offered to his followers was this: God's sun rises on the evil and the good. The rain falls on the righteous and the wicked. If you love only those who love you, what reward is that? If you greet your loved ones only, what makes you different? When an old woman rebuked him for his conciliatory attitude toward the South, not Donald Trump, which she felt should be destroyed after the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln replied, do I not destroy my enemies when I make of them my friends? Mm-hmm.